Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. I'm really happy to be here. I'm Nipasa Pradhan, your host for today's session. And before we start off with today's webinar and we have our guest join us, I have this very important disclaimer. And that is by watching our videos, you agree and understand that the information provided by our experts and attorneys, including comments and replies from users, is not legal advice. Use of information is at your own risk. So, folks, thank you so much for joining us. We are live right now on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and on X. Please feel free to join us by commenting. And another best thing is that you can join us to even have a one-on-one discussion or maybe ask a question to our guest directly by joining us on this phone number. And the number is 425-436-6335, and the access code is 988-888. And once you're in, just speak, we will be able to hear you. So, yes, today's webinar is on this very, very important topic about, how is Donald Trump's proposed 2025 agenda and how could it reshape the immigration policies in the US? So it's going to be very nice that, we are going to be discussing further on this, all the way from the stricter border measures to potential changes with work visas and even family-based immigration. So everything about immigration today here and what we can expect this year 2025. And to help us make sense of this topic and this discussion, we have a very, very special guest today, and she is none other than attorney Ingrid Perez, who is an experienced immigration expert and an advocate who has guided countless individuals and organizations through the various complexities of US immigration law. So, Ingrid, welcome back. So good to have you back. So good to see you. And it's a pleasure to have you on our show.
Likewise, thank you for having me again.
Really good to see you. And I wonder how's everything going at IBP Immigration Law?
We're very busy, starting off the year really well. Thank you for asking, and our team is growing, and we are excited for a very interesting year ahead for sure.
Me too, me too. And all the very best. Let's hope 2025 is going to be awesome. So, all the best to you and everyone out there at IBP Immigration Law.
Thank you.
So, coming back to our topic of discussion, Ingrid, if you can just give a short overview, to our viewers out there so that they can stay with us, as in what can they expect in today's session.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I think, based on the first Trump administration, there's a lot that we can predict that is going to happen. For sure, we all know that Trump is a critic of family based immigration, and we can anticipate some additional scrutiny on requests for waivers for like that. And I think also heightened scrutiny for visa applicants from certain countries and in certain U.S. embassies. I think we can definitely expect that. There have been, reports of Trump wanting to implement some executive orders on day one, things like ending birthright citizenship, and deportation orders starting day one. So I think that that is going to be something that he's probably going to focus on. However, we stand to see what's actually going to happen as a result of these executive orders, because a lot of these orders and policies can often be challenged in court. So although, Donald Trump may want to do all these things, I think there's also legal challenges and procedural challenges and practical challenges, especially when it comes to mass deportation. ICE and our infrastructure can simply not handle the level of deportation that he has promised. So it's interesting, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that promise.
Very, very well said. And this brings me to our first question, which is very similar and about the deportation and illegal immigration. So, how do you think Trump's 2025 immigration plans, especially with which is focusing on illegal immigration and even mass deportation, how's it going to affect work visas as well, like H-1B and H-2B for foreign workers, especially from India? Ingrid, are you there? Well, I guess there is some connection issue, but yes, we are definitely going to take this up, and we would love you to join us also by commenting. If you have any
I'm
questions,
here.
yeah. I don't know what happened, but you were frozen for a while. Did you hear me
Oh,
ask
no
the
problem.
question?
Yes, I did.
All right.
So, in regards to the connection between the illegal or undocumented immigrants and the work visas, that's an interesting question because immigration is really such an expansive area of, law. And we have work visas, we have permanent residency, and we definitely have a lot of issues at the border. Um, and I think that, the Trump administration will focus on the priorities that he has promised, which is to curb illegal immigration, border crossings, and secure the southern border. A lot of resources have to go into that, right? We can expect a lot of resources from different federal agencies to be put into maybe perhaps building the border wall or implementing new technology to protect the southern border and close it up. So, as far as the any direct impact between illegal immigration and visas like H-1Bs or H-2Bs, I'm not sure if there will be a direct impact, but if his promise is to secure the southern border and that is going to take a lot of money from different government, we can perhaps see longer wait times. And also, I think, in keeping with his promise of stricter immigration, more scrutiny on H-1Bs and H-2Bs.
Right. And when we talk about H2B, I think Indians are already out of the question. But H1B, definitely yes. So I do hope that it's going to be somehow better. I mean, people in his team, some are supporting it, some are not supporting it, some are against immigration. So what do you think is going to happen? Just
Well, I think, the conversation around H-1B specifically has been really interesting, over the last few months. And I think that there's also a lot of wrong information out there about H-1Bs. The conversation seems to be, centered around this idea that H-1Bs are only for Indian nationals, which is not true. H-1Bs is mostly used up by Indian nationals because of the per country limit on green cards. And unfortunately, Indian nationals have no choice but to be on H-1B for years and years because they are lawfully discriminated against when it comes to getting green cards. And the backlogs are, insane. So that is just sort of, a result of this very unfair and unjust system. So we do have some level of legalized discrimination against Indian nationals and other people who fall outside of the rest of the world, column in the visa bulletin for sure. And this conversation around that H-1Bs is only for tech workers.
for some reason we are having a connectivity issue, but I do hope Ingrid is going to be back. And folks out there, please, I mean, participate as well. You also can join us by commenting in whichever platform you're watching. And we are live right now on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and on X. So please feel free to join us, and you can even join us on call by dialing this number 425-436-6335, and the access code is 988888. Today, we are speaking about how could Trump's 2025 agenda reshape U.S. immigration policies. And Ingrid is back. So sorry, Ingrid. Somehow there is some.
We'll deal with it. I mean, it is what it is, right? We'll keep the
Yes,
conversation
yes.
going. But I
You can
think we
pick
were
up where you. Yeah.
Yeah, but going back to that very important conversation where we were talking about the misconceptions that this Twitter war has sort of unearthed, right? This
Mhm.
idea that only Indian nationals have H-1B visas, which is absolutely not true, and also this idea that only technology workers, get H-1Bs, which is also not true. It is true that many tech companies do workers and companies, nonprofits, universities, colleges, hospitals that have H-1B workers.
Yes, yes, for sure. And starting today, 17th of January, we have some new rules which we are going to discuss a little further, a little later in this show. So stay with us, friends. So, Ingrid, the next question to you is, if you could tell us, what will the impact be, with Trump's proposed immigration crackdowns, which are going to be impacting temporary work visas as well, like H-2B, and how will it affect Indian workers who are really seeking opportunities in the US?
Well, I think under Trump 2.0, we can expect a lot more scrutiny in the workplace as well, which is something that I think is important to talk about. The Trump team has talked about workplace raids, making sure that employers are employing people with work authorization. So we may see some of that as well. As far as the H-2B, program itself, this program is already very highly scrutinized. Employers have to jump through lots of hoops to get H-2B workers. I think that temporary visas like the H-1B, the H-2B visas, um, I'm unsure if we're going to see the impact right away, especially because I think that the initial focus will be on undocumented immigrants and perhaps the border. But we stand to see. I think that the tides have turned a little bit about the conversation with work visas, and we see Trump, saying some things that are very different than what he said before, that he likes H-1Bs and that he, uses H-1Bs, even though I think really what he was talking about H-2Bs, H-2B workers in his hotels. So I think that, if the tides really are turning, there are definitely people within the Trump administration who don't want any immigration at all. But we stand to see because I think there's lots of competing interests now with this new Trump administration.
Right. Thank you. I mean, yes, from what you have told us, very, very true. And thank you so much for, taking that up. My next question to you, I have is, how could Trump's immigration policies, including mass deportations, though we spoke about it a little earlier, but if you could elaborate more, and stricter enforcement, with his team being like, we have the border czar and we have so many others in his team, and how are they going to affect Indian nationals who are already in the US and on work visas or student visas?
So I think Indian nationals in the United States with student visas will definitely be seeking opportunities to stay in the United States, and usually that is done through an H-1B. Um, and it is difficult to find an employer who is willing to sponsor you for the H-1B. And getting an H-1B in and of itself is difficult because we have a lottery that a person has to enter into in the in March of every year. And if they are, lucky enough to be selected, the employer has to file a petition. There are lots of hoops and jumps, and it is an expensive process that is controlled by the employer. So I think for Indian nationals, they need to be thinking about this transition from F1 to potentially an H1B very early on in their careers, taking advantage of any OPT, or STEM OPT time that they may be able to get, and really start thinking about transitioning to H1B very early on. As soon as they, start working. And I think that mass deportations and stricter enforcement, perhaps not so much mass deportation, but stricter enforcement will certainly lead to greater scrutiny on H-1Bs. And this new light that has been shed into H-1Bs that unfortunately has a lot of misconception and a lot of, the Trump base upset with H-1B workers and the H-1B visa, right? We could see higher scrutiny in H-1B petitions and perhaps maybe more denials like we've had during Trump 1.0. I think during the first Trump administration, the denial rates were a lot higher, significantly higher. If I'm not mistaken, I think I saw a statistic that in 2020 it was about 26.6%, as compared to the recent years where it was a lot better for H-1B workers. So I think that starting early on, ensuring that the work and the employer that you are going to be working with is a legitimate employer, because there is a lot of, H-1B fraud, and there is a lot of problems in the system. That is certainly true, and there's a lot of criticisms to be made and a lot of improvements that could be made. So I think ensuring that the student here who's in the United States seeking the opportunity is also very well informed and educated on the process and what they need, so that they can protect themselves from this heightened scrutiny. Because as we all know, the U.S. government doesn't give you a lot of flexibility if you're running out of time here in the United States, and that's really important to keep in mind. And have a plan B. If you're not selected for the H-1B lottery, what are you going to do? Are you going to Canada? Or are you going back to school? Get back on your F1? Having a plan B is very important because unfortunately, H-1B is just not a reality for everybody. But another possibility is exploring H-1B capped exempt positions. And of course, these are perhaps a little bit harder to come by, and the employment opportunities not so much, but that is a way to circumvent the lottery for those that are able to get a capped exempt job.
Right, right. And we also hear about the cap gap being extended from October fiscal year to the 1st of April the next year. And apart from that, we even heard like, schools are taking measures to not just give out their immigration status to anybody and everybody. Have you heard the news too, Ingrid?
Are you talking about giving I-20s to students?
No, I'm talking about, how the schools are protecting the students who are immigrants. And yes, the school rates. I'm talking about the school rates. And,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
So, I mean, there are places like historically that, like churches, hospitals, schools, where ICE is not supposed to go in and do immigration enforcement. So we'll see what that looks like. I think there's a lot of information out there meant to scare people and a lot of talk, but we just don't know. We're really entering a world of uncertainty. And I think that if it plays out in the real world where ICE is going into a place of worship or a school and doing these things, I think that there's going to be a lot of backlash. At least I would hope that there is a lot of backlash. And if Donald Trump and his administration are serious about, protecting US borders, perhaps they should focus on the border itself, or perhaps enforcing deportation orders for people who are a priority to be removed and not.
Okay. So I think there is again a connectivity issue, but I would really like to say hi to folks out there who have joined us. And hi, Rohan. Hi to Vikas. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to take up your questions. Please stay with us. And Ingrid is back. So, Ingrid, please carry on.
Yeah, so what I was saying before is, if we see immigration raids in places where, people are worshiping or going to school or hospitals, I think there will be backlash, and I hope that certainly there will be backlash. And I don't think that should be the focus, but we stand to see. There's a lot of competing interests, I think, at least what we've seen with everything that's going on in the news and X and different people with the incoming administration. So we'll see what happens. I certainly hope that immigration raids does not happen in places where people go to worship or school or to get medical treatment. But we'll stand to see.
Yes, yes. It's too early to say, but folks out there, I think, yes, there are a lot of changes coming up, especially with the new administration starting 20th of January, since Trump is hitting office on that day. But it's too early to say. We will need a buffer time. First off, he will start taking his actions only sooner than later, I think. So we'll just have to wait and watch. But very rightly said, Ingrid, that there's so much news out there, and so many of those news are really scaring people, especially immigrants or people who want to go to the US to live their American dream. All right, now next up, I have another question, and if you could tell us, the new immigration policies under Trump's 2025 agenda. I mean, stricter requirements for H-2B visas, and how could this impact, the Indians and people from other countries as well?
Well, I think, you know, anytime you have stricter requirements for any type of visa, the hurdles are definitely going to be harder for anybody trying an opportunity in the United States. I think also a potential impact is employers will be less willing to go through this process and find workers. However, I think, you know, if you're unable to hire H-2B workers and other temporary workers, and we are unable to find the American workers that can do those jobs, the economy will take a hit. You know, I think that comprehensive immigration reform is important. However, we have to consider every aspect of our economy as well. And immigration, you know, smart immigration policy really responds to the demands of the labor market. And I think the H-2B visas are, you know, a great way to supplement the workers that we need here in the United States. I mean, even if you look at, for example, what's happening in California with the wildfires and the fact that California now completely needs to be rebuilt. We do not have the American workers here in the United States to help rebuild California after these tragic wildfires.
Right, Ingrid. Thank you so much for bringing that up. I mean, California is suffering, and there's so much loss. Everybody, celebrities, common men, and people out there. It's There's just been so much destruction, and it's still going on. I mean, we keep hearing the news updates, and I really hope and pray that that people find strength in all these difficult times. And Ingrid, if you're back, so yes, you were
Yes.
talking about the California wildfires.
I don't know what's going on with my Wi-Fi, so I apologize. But you know, in regards to California, we don't have the American workers. You know, we don't have enough workers in the United States to be able to construct, reconstruct, and rebuild California. And construction companies rely heavily on H-2B workers to come do these types of jobs. And I think that that is, you know, such a benefit and a value to America to have these workers come in, do the job, do it quickly, do it well, and these are temporary jobs that really fill a need. So, you know, that is one example, for example, where, you know, America really only stands to gain from H-2B workers. Um, you know, I hope that the incoming Trump administration can realize that and not, you know, make this process extra burdensome for the employers and the people that would really benefit from H-2B workers, not just the workers themselves, but also the American people that only stand to benefit from their labor.
Yes, so true. And when you just talk about in general, I mean, immigrants are also creating jobs. They're coming to the US, creating, I mean, I'm talking about entrepreneurs, they are creating jobs for many others out there. So I think, yes, it should be like a win win for everyone and not make it difficult for both the parties.
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, yes. And let's go back to my next question, coming back to our discussion. So, how do you think Trump's stance on birthright citizenship and mass deportations affect family reunification for Indian immigrants, especially those who are waiting for green cards? And there has been a lot of backlogs for years
Yes.
now.
Yes. So that's a really great question because Trump has famously said that he's going to end birthright citizenship, even though that is guaranteed in the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. And he said that on day one, he will, you know, issue an executive order ending birthright citizenship for children whose parents are here in the United States without documents, whose parents are here in the United States and are undocumented, which clearly by the language of the 14th Amendment, that is unconstitutional. So I think that that is not going to hold up if it's, you know, scrutinized. Um, I also was watching and listening to the Attorney General's confirmation hearings, and she was asked the question, what are her, you know, does she believe that the 14th Amendment protects birthright citizenship? And she refused to give a straight answer. She said that she had to study birthright citizenship in the context of the 14th Amendment, which I think is a very alarming and disturbing question, because if you are getting the job to protect and defend the Constitution. And here you are saying that you have to study birthright citizenship in order to give an answer. I find that alarming. So, I mean, I think that is one of those things that Trump, famously does. He says a lot of things to spark debate and cause a stir. I think if he were to issue an executive order ending birthright citizenship on day one, it will be taken up by the Supreme Court, and I think it will be struck down. So, he will get to say, well, I tried and they, didn't let me. I think that's the strategy behind that. And of course, we'll see what happens. I mean, I don't think that's going to stand. So, what I understand is that this executive order is meant to strip away birthright citizenship from children whose parents are here in the United States without documents, and not necessarily for people here with H-2Bs or H-1Bs or different visas, but we will see.
Yes, we will. It's too early to say. We still have about 3 more days for Trump really joining office. So I wonder how's it going. I know people have been so anxious, and especially till before the elections, and even after the elections, there's so much news to only make them more anxious. So
Yeah.
uh, yes. So do you have anything to say? I mean, 3 days early before Trump joins office.
Oh, wow. We've been down this road before. I think that during the first Trump administration, immigration was very challenging. Practicing immigration law was very difficult. It was very frustrating. So we've been down this road before. I think that the immigration bar is prepared to fight and advocate on behalf of immigrants. I am also perhaps cautiously optimistic that there have been some voices that are emerging and talking about high skilled immigration, H-1Bs, and the need for skilled immigrants in the United States. Perhaps there will be some attitude shift on those fronts. I do think, though, that Donald Trump's priority is, undocumented immigrants, the border, and scrutinizing more family-based petitions and visas, and perhaps visa applications from people from certain countries or certain religions. But so I am somewhat optimistic, cautiously optimistic, that employment-based immigration will continue, be stable. However, I think if anything has taught us that over maybe the last six months or so, we have seen so many requests for evidence for people applying for, petitioning for EB2 and IW visas. We had this really great 2022 executive order on STEM from the Biden administration that really was supposed to be a way to attract more STEM workers in the EB2 and IW category. And it was great for a little while. And I think the floodgates opened and immigration perhaps had a little bit of buyer's remorse. And the last 6 months or so has really shown us to be very challenging when it comes to EB2 and IWs, and people trying to file self petitions because the perm is taking so long, or perhaps because people are here on H-1Bs and they need an approved I-140 to be able to extend the H-1Bs. And I see that USCIS has been very unfriendly to people in technology, and especially people who work for big tech companies. So there has been, some shifts that were not necessarily, in my opinion, in a positive direction, in the way that the STEM guidance was supposed to, make EB2 and IWs more friendly for STEM professionals. And we have to learn to adapt. So just the same way that we learn to adapt, in an administration that was supposed to be friendly towards immigrants, we'll learn to adapt again in an administration that is, not so friendly to immigrants.
That's so true. That's so true. But I do hope that they are going to be at least how to say, they will have change of minds, change of ideas with Elon Musk also in the team, and yes, Sri Ramakrishnan and so many others in the team. So I do hope that he will change his ideas, and let's hope for the best for sure. All right, Ingrid. My next question is also, what changes in green card allocations could occur in Trump's 2025 immigration plan, particularly for skilled workers in sectors like IT and healthcare?
That's a great question. I mean, one way to perhaps, improve the system is to get rid of the per country cap. For sure, that would delay other nationalities' ability to get a green card, but I think it would even the playing field for a lot of people, especially Indian nationals, who's stuck in this backlog that is really absurd. So that is something that could happen. For skilled workers in IT and healthcare, I think those are just two very distinct fields. For healthcare, for sure, there's a lot of shortage and different opportunities for people in healthcare to perhaps get cap exempt H-1Bs. And maybe explore other avenues for permanent residency. For IT, I think that is a more challenging industry because we see a lot of layoffs for people in technology. And we see a lot of, people in IT and their positions being sent offshore. So I think for IT professionals, it's a lot more challenging, especially a lot of IT professionals work as consultants for one company that hires a lot of employees on H-1Bs, and then they subcontract these people out to different customers or different companies. So it is a completely different industry, with lots of challenges. And I think self petition options like EB-1As or EB-2NIWs, if an employer is unwilling to sponsor that professional for permanent residency, becomes a little bit more challenging, especially I think now that we saw the EB2NIW policy update or the policy guidance update from a couple of days ago that talks about people in technology and how the benefit, for example, for an EB2NIW really cannot be for the employer. The benefit for an EB2NIW really has to be broader. And I think it makes it a little harder for IT professionals and people in technology to perhaps self petition and be able to get their green cards on their own.
So true. Thank you so much, Ingrid. And IT and healthcare, these are two sectors where we see a lot of immigrants coming in and who want to work and live their American dream. So before we go on to our next questions, I would really like to take up some of our audience's questions because they have been waiting. So let's take up Rohan's one first. This is on YouTube. And Rohan is saying Trump has talked about tightening immigration laws and reducing the number of refugees. How would this impact individuals already residing in the US who might be waiting on asylum or refugee status or seeking other pathways to legal residency?
Well, I think the immediate effect will be most felt by people who will be seeking those benefits after Trump implements any changes. During the first Trump administration, we saw people who were applying for asylum get interviews in as little as 3 months. So there was a policy where, if you were applying for asylum, they would give you an interview really quickly. The idea was to get you in and out really fast. And that actually caused a significant backlog for individuals who had filed asylum applications and had been waiting in line for quite some time. So, I mean, I talk to people all the time, especially people from Venezuela who came to the United States maybe or maybe 10 years ago, filed for asylum, and before Trump, and after Trump, they were stuck in this queue waiting for their interview because of so many people applying for asylum and getting their interviews earlier. So I think it may have, if that's the policy he's going to go back to, it may have an impact more on the people that will be applying after any policy changes, perhaps not so much the people who are applying before. But of course, if there is greater scrutiny, on asylum applications, TPS, seeking refugee status, then for sure that would apply to people whose cases have not yet been adjudicated. So it's important, I think, to be informed and work with your attorney to keep up with whatever latest policy there is, because these cases take so long to be adjudicated that you want to stay on top of it. You want to stay informed.
So true. Well, thank you so much for taking this up for Rohan. And Rohan, I hope you got your answer. And if you have any more questions, you can keep commenting. And why don't folks out there who are watching us, why don't you join us on call? Our phone number is 425-436-6335, and the access code is 988-888. All right. So now let's take up Vikas's comments. This first one is on Vikas is also on YouTube. And Vikas is asking, I've been working on an H-1B visa for several years and have reached the 6 year limit. However, my employer is unwilling to sponsor my green card application due to company policies. Meanwhile, I received a job offer from another company that's willing to sponsor my green card. Uh, yes, and but it would require me to take a significant pay cut. What are my options for staying in the US? And how can I weigh the pros and cons of each choice to make an informed decision about my career and immigration future?
So if you're in your 6th year and you don't have an approved I-140 yet, it's going to be very difficult to have an employer file a perm for you and get an approved I-140 so you can take advantage of, an extension that goes beyond the 6 year. However, if you are somebody who may be able to get an EB2, have an EB2 and IW filed on your own behalf, you could perhaps consider filing an EB2 and IW petition, not premium process, and let it take the slow toll, and perhaps you can take advantage from 1 year increments of your on your H1B. I think that's perhaps a strategy that you could explore. However, this is not legal advice. I really would encourage you to talk to an immigration attorney to see if that is a possibility for you. But there is a section of our laws that says that if you have a pending I-140 and you're in your 6th year of H-1B, you may be able to get extensions at 1 year increments. Aside from that, it's very difficult to perhaps stay in the United States longer without an approved I-140. You may have to explore perhaps, a different visa. But it sounds like you perhaps are coming towards the end of the road. So, I would weigh the pros and cons between, seeking an EB2 and IW on your own so you can take advantage of those 1 year increments, or, considering the job that your employer is willing to sponsor you for perm, see what that is going to look like, right? And consider perhaps taking the pay cut so that you can stay in the United States. I think it's a fine balancing act, and you have to really understand the options you have to make the best decision for you.
But there you go, Vikas, and I hope you've gotten your answer. Thank you so much for commenting, and please keep commenting if you have more questions. Let's take up Kavya's question now. Hi, Kavya. Thank you for joining us on YouTube. And Kavya is asking, given the current immigration landscape, do you anticipate any changes or updates to the IR3, IH4, IH3, IR4, or IH4 visa categories in the near future? And I'm asking because a family member is considering adoption, and I'd like to understand any potential implications for their planning process.
So I think that what Trump is, he does scrutinize immediate relative or immigrant in family visa petitions. So I think that there may be greater scrutiny on those petitions to perhaps establish the relationship between the petitioner and the beneficiary. I don't see any significant changes in the way right now that the visa categories will be perhaps affected in the future. I do think that there probably will be significant delays, because if people are outside of the United States waiting for, these visas, their priority dates to become current in order to apply for the visa, there may be some significant delays. So I think people need to manage their expectations and not, sell their house and pack up all their belongings to move to the United States. It's going to be a waiting game. It's going to be a waiting game at the U.S. embassies for sure. It's definitely going to be a slow process.
Yes, yes. And with all these new changes, I think, anytime there's a new change, a new rule, or maybe even a form update for that matter, I think it takes a little buffer time so that things are, again, followed the correct way, seeing that, the forms are right, right? Ingrid, what do you have to say from past experiences?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, like, for example, today there's a new I-129 form that goes into effect without any real buffer time, right? So I think that you need to stay on top of this stuff to know what's going on with immigration so that you're not causing delays because you're just not aware of any changes. So I think that's really important. I think it's also really important to make sure that your information is, correct in every piece of, any form, any documentation that you submit to any government agency, because they will be cross-checking and using a lot more technology to make sure that your information matches everywhere, because I think they're going to be looking for a lot more fraud and a lot more, misrepresentation, and doing a lot more scrutiny, and perhaps using technology to do so. So I think it's really important to be incredibly detailed oriented, and take your time up front, so that you're not wasting time later on trying to correct errors.
EPS, right, from Sudan, Ukraine, and even Venezuela. So that too, I think we have new updates. So, folks, I think I would always appeal to you to do your research and stay updated with all these latest new rules, new updates, so that you don't miss out on them. You're on time, and yes, I think that's it for now. So, Ingrid, let's come back to some of our questions since we have a little more time, and I do have more questions actually from our Facebook. And I would also like to say, folks out there who have joined us, you can even contact Attorney Ingrid Perez from IBP Immigration Law, and her phone number is 407-906-0068, and her email address is info@ibplaw.com, and go visit www.ibplaw.com. So, Ingrid, coming up, my next question to you is, how will Trump's proposed visa vetting process impact Indian workers who are applying for US visas or permanent residency, and what could this mean for, their chances of approval?
I think similar to what I was saying before, we can expect a lot more technology and scrutiny in any visa application. So I think that people that are applying for any visa, no matter whether they are abroad or in the United States, or applying for any green card here in the United States, or any petition, anything like that, should really take their time with ensuring that everything is correct, that the information matches everywhere. You don't want to inadvertently make a mistake on your form or on your application or petition, which will cause a delay and a headache later on down the road. And I think that also, plan for delays, and understand that it is going to be probably a lengthy process from now on.
Okay, am I audible? I don't know why am I stuck though.
Can you hear me?
Ingrid, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. It's just you're frozen.
Yes, for some reason I am frozen. I do not know what is the problem, but I can take up this next question, and as you answer, I could join back. So, my next question to you would be: how will Trump's 2025 focus on border security and immigration enforcement affect Indian students who are looking to study in the US?
I think for
Who have
Indian students looking to study in the US, they're going to be applying for their visas at a US embassy or US consulate. And I think similar to my last answer, it's important to plan ahead, plan for delays, and ensure that all of your documentation, your I-20s, your applications, your DS-160 is done, really, really well. I think those will be scrutinized. Another thing also that is important to note is that the upcoming administration said that they will be denying student visas and kicking people out of the state who perhaps support Hamas, right? So making sure that your social media is not showing anything like that could potentially be used against you, I think is also really important. And unfortunately, that is just where we are right now. I think Marco Rubio said something like that they will be, not issuing student visas or kicking people out of the country who perhaps are friendly to these organizations that the United States do not support.
Okay, very, very interesting. And well, I really want to just say, just don't be scared. I really hope that you are abiding by the rules and the laws, and there should not be anything to be so worried about. So, thank you so much. Yes, and folks out there, you can join us, and I think we will take a short break for now. But before that, I just want to tell you that you can also connect with us, and for that, you can call us on our number, and the number is 425-436-6335, and the access code is 988-888. And once you're in, you'll be even able to speak with Attorney Ingrid Perez directly, since we are here for a couple more minutes. So why don't you join us to ask your questions? The line is on, and yes, we'll be very happy to have you. And also, you can contact Attorney Ingrid Perez, and you can do that by dialing her number 407-906-0068. That's her number. And her email address, in case you want to contact her for your case, you can email her at info@ibplaw.com, and go visit www.ibplaw.com to get to know more about Attorney Ingrid Perez and IBP immigration law. And well, another thing is, you can also contact me. You can WhatsApp me on my number, and you can even call me on my number. And my number is 408-335-6444. And my email address is nipa@staffingly.com. So please feel free to join us and call me, tell me about yourself, tell us about your case, and we can direct them to our attorneys directly. So, yes, coming back to our questions, and Ingrid, we also have some more questions from people who have joined us on Facebook. So, Control, if you can display them, please, we can take them up. So, this question is from an anonymous member saying, "Hi, all. Is it worth doing day one CPT if H1B is not picked in all three attempts?"
Oh, that's a tough question. That's a tough question to answer without really knowing your individual situation, because day one CPT can be beneficial for many people, but you also have to be very careful with day one CPT because it is, it does sometimes cut into any other work authorization time that you may have in the future. I would perhaps not be in the best position to answer this question without really understanding your specific situation and what your future plans are, because I think if you're planning on doing day one CPT, you really have to have a vision for the future as well. And it's unfortunately a little hard to answer this question without really knowing a lot more about your situation.
Yes, yes, I feel that. Yes. So, folks, whenever you tell us about, whenever you have a question, it would be really nice to get more details about yourself, your case, where you're at, and more details, basically. So, all right, let's take up this next one. Control, please. So, my immigration team mentioned that nowadays there is lead time of 4 to 6 weeks to receive the RFE after USCIS sends it. Wonder if that would eat into the response time of 60 days. Is there a way to know the nature of the RFE? According to them, they can't tell until it is received in mail. I was in Canada at the time they received the petition amendment. Curious if it could be related to that.
So I don't think that it could be related to the fact that you were in Canada, but for sure, getting receiving an RFE 4 to 6 weeks after it is issued will cut into your time, and it does disadvantage you significantly, especially if immigration is requesting you know a lot more information on your petition. So I'm surprised if something like that happens. I would definitely work with your attorney to make sure that you respond to that RFE as soon as you can, and document all the attempts that perhaps you have made to contact USCIS to get a faster RFE in the mail, so that you can take advantage of all the time that you're given to perhaps respond to the RFE. And yeah, it's difficult to know what's in the RFE until you actually get it. But I think that if you don't get it within, if you look at the USCIS website and it says they sent you an RFE and you don't have it within like a week, I would definitely be contacting USCIS to request a second copy and documenting all of my efforts that I've made to contact USCIS and get that RFE. I would definitely do that.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. I mean, I'm sure that would be very helpful. I wish we knew the name, but it was an anonymous person. So, yes. Let's take up our next one. So I had recently traveled to US on H1B and only in few days got laid off and today returning back to my country. I have few questions. How can I know if my H1B is cancelled or revoked? And the second is, in future, can I transfer or renew H1B with other employers? And the third is, will I get salary and pay slips for these few weeks? And if I am eligible to apply again for H1B, what documents required for me? What documents are required?
Okay, so let me answer, let me try to answer as best as I can some aspects of this question. Um, should you be getting paid? Yes, you should get paid for the time that you worked for your employer, for sure. If you don't, you should seek an attorney to help you recover the money that you were not paid. Those are unpaid wages that you earned. So you should definitely be getting paid. Usually, when you are let go from a position, you have a 60-day grace period. Sounds like in this case, you left the United States, so you don't have that 60-day grace period to be here in the United States and look for another H-1B position. If you have an H-1B, if you have H-1B time left, you can get another employer to file a petition on your behalf so you can get another H-1B position. You can certainly do that. As far as documents that you need, I mean, that is going to be very specific to your case, but usually when an employer is filing an H-1B petition for an employee and it's a specialty occupation, we need the employee's diplomas, evidence of maintaining lawful status when you're here in the United States, information from the employer, for ability to pay, things like that. So you need a whole new petition, from a new employer, and you can get back to work on H-1B.
Right, right. Anything else you want to say on these questions?
How can I know if my H-1B is canceled or revoked? Well, if you have the H-1B, you're not going to be able to come into the country later on with the H-1B unless you have an employer. If your H-1B is revoked, if immigration decides to revoke or cancel your H-1B, you'd be getting a letter. But other than that, if you're outside of the United States, definitely maintain and keep all of your H-1B approvals so that if you are going to get back on H-1B, you can do so.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much, Ingrid, for taking that up. And I think with that, we have covered all the questions from our audience. And also, I would like you to share with us if you have any experiences, especially related to immigration or any case study from your end that you would like to share. That was very interesting.
Yeah, so recently we did an H-1B cap exempt for an Indian national working for a playwright a theater company, which was a really interesting case to work on. This person did have an H-1B denied before they came to my office, and we were able to get this H-1B approved, the cap exempt H-1B, which is really wonderful because she did not have to go through the lottery. I think that, there is this idea that H-1Bs is just for a specific type of occupation or, the most prestigious or mostly high skilled occupations. And it can be, perhaps it should be, I don't know. However, the H-1B is really designed for professionals. And I think sometimes that, you can be creative with the H-1B strategy in order to really show immigration that the job that you're coming to do is a professional position that qualifies for H-1B. So I would just say for people that are, maybe not selected to the H-1B lottery, or people who are stuck or perhaps don't know what to do, an H-1B capped exempt position may be the solution to your problems. And I would also start thinking about ways to secure your permanent residency here in the United States very early on in your career. And also one on the last note, since we talked a little bit about students, right, wanting to come to the United States, I think for students who want to come to the United States and study here and take advantage of the employment opportunities, It's really important to understand and study the labor market to understand and figure out an area that, is really in demand. Because what we see is that for a lot of technology companies, there's significant layoffs. And if you're here on H-1B, you could be affected. Not only can you get laid off, but your employer may not be willing to sponsor you for the perm if they have mass layoffs. So I think it's really important to, plan your immigration from the very beginning, beginning with the degree and the area of study that you're going to be focusing on, so that you have the best chances of permanent residency in the United States through your job.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And it was a very, very interesting one. Ingrid, thank you so much. And I think we just have two more comments and we'll just take them. Vikas says, thanks for the information. And thank you, Vikas, for joining. And we have Luwain, if I'm pronouncing it right. Luwain is asking, hello, what kind of changes can we expect on EB1 and EB2 with Trump administration?
Well, Trump famously said that he thinks everybody who graduated from college here in the United States should get a green card stamped to their diploma. So, I'm hopeful that, or I'm, optimistically, cautiously optimistic that under the new Trump administration, we're not going to see perhaps many new restrictions on EB1s and EB2 and IWs. We saw that under the Biden administration, there were so many executive orders and guidance meant to make EB1s and EB2s and even O's more attainable for STEM professionals to, maintain America's competitiveness in these STEM fields. And then, the people responded and the people applied for these benefits, and immigration sort of had to, a little bit of, recalibration as far as the way that these cases are adjudicated. So, what can we expect? I'm hopeful that, the tides have shifted a little bit. The conversation around employment-based immigration and high-skilled immigration, have shifted. People are a little bit more aware of the benefits that these professionals bring to the United States, and really the need, right? We really need people with specialized knowledge and, advanced degrees, and people here with, EB1 extraordinary ability, achievements and things like that to push so many different industry sectors forward. So I'm hoping that, there won't be any changes. But I mean, I think Stephen Miller, who was in the Trump administration, said that they will be restricting these kinds of, petitions as well. But we stand to see. I haven't heard anything much about this. I think that, we have had some recent guidance, and I think we need to adjust to that a little bit. I won't be surprised if we see something, right away, but we'll just have to wait and see. I think under Trump, EB2s were, they were friendly towards, entrepreneurial endeavors and endeavors of that sort. EB1s received very high scrutiny, and they still do. These are hard visas to get. So, we'll see if anything will change right away. I think it's going to take a little bit of, the dust needs to settle a little bit with the recent changes, especially with the EB2, so that we can see what immigration is going to do.
Yes, yes, so true. Thank you so much, Luane, for participating, and Ingrid for your answer. And okay, we have one more who just jumped in just now. Hi, Dio. I don't know, but I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. But this will be our last question for the day, Ingrid, if that's fine. So, yes, we have Dio asking, hello, I'm an artist from Dominican Republic and I would like to move to US to continue with my music career. Is there any way to change my visa B1 to B1 B2 to work permit so I can perform in different places? Yeah.
So artists do have ways to come to the United States and perform. There are different options depending on the type of performance, how long you're planning to stay, what your itinerary looks like. Perhaps you could look into an O visa or maybe a P visa, depending on your specific situation. But for sure, I think it requires you to plan ahead, because you do need to inform immigration what your plans are. as far as, the jobs you're going to be doing, the performances you're going to be doing, and you also need to make sure that you qualify for the classification that you were seeking. You're definitely not allowed to come to the United States with a B1, B2 to work, but there are options for artists, and I think it's important to perhaps talk to an immigration attorney and assess your background, the types of evidence that you have to show that you meet the qualification, and then start making your plans here in the United States so you can present your itinerary to the immigration authorities and perhaps get that work visa so you can come and perform.
There you go, Dio. Thank you so much, Ingrid, for patiently taking up all of these questions from our viewers. And Luane says thank you. Thank you, Luane, also, for participating. And I think with that, it's a wrap. And Ingrid, if you have any last notes, to wrap up our show for today.
Well, just thank you for having me. And I really enjoyed having this conversation. And I hope to come back. And, sometimes it's a little difficult to answer individual questions without getting into the details. But for sure, I hope that the information has been valuable. And if people have any questions, they can definitely reach out to me. And I hope to be back.
Me too. And I hope to really see you very soon, hopefully this month itself. But yes, we will see what we can do and when can we have you back. But definitely, folks, you can also contact attorney Ingrid Perez by emailing her, and her email address is info@ibplaw.com, and her phone number is 407-906-0068. And go visit her website, www.ibplaw.com, to get to know more about IBP immigration law and also attorney Ingrid Perez. Thank you so much, Ingrid, once again, and here's wishing you a wonderful day ahead. See you soon.
You too. Take care. Thank you.
Take care, you too. Folks, thank you so much for joining us. And if you resonated with today's episode, please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel, Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. We are here on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and on X. Follow us, connect with us, and also you can contact me. You can WhatsApp me or call me on my number. My phone number is 408 336 335 6444, and my email address is nipa@staffingly.com. So feel free to connect with us. Thank you so much for joining, and don't go anywhere. Stay tuned to Immigration and Jobs Talk Show.